Hello and welcome to Food Rebels. This is the show that's dedicated to the more rebellious side of the food world. We're all fed up with big corporations making bad decisions for us. It's time that the challenger brands and the little guys shine. Each episode we meet food and drink founders, chefs, or personalities who are changing the food industry today for the better. I'm AJ Sharp. I'm a food and drink judge, public speaker, agency owner. I believe strongly in manifestation and my favourite colour is orange. But professionally, I've spent decades helping ethical and sustainable brands to grow. But Food Rebels is about so much more than that. This is about raising understanding and respect for great tasting, nourishing food and drink. On the show, we meet some really inspiring people. We taste great food and drink live on air, and we peek inside the minds of some of the most influential food experts today. So join us. And if you want to show support for the show and the inspiring guests we have on, the best way is to subscribe, share, and drop a comment below. Hello, today on Food Rebels, we're joined by Amber Guinness, cook, writer, and storyteller, whose new book, Winter in Tuscany, is a love letter to the region she calls home. Amber's here to talk about cooking with heart, living with balance, and what Tuscany can teach us about living and eating with intention. Amber, welcome to Food Rebels.
Oh, thanks so much for having me, AJ.
It's an absolute pleasure. I have absolutely fallen in love with this beautiful, beautiful book. It's beautiful from the burnt orange, my favourite colour, by the way, to the photography inside it and the stories that you have woven in and amongst all the different recipes throughout this book. It's like a hug in a book. I absolutely love it.
Oh my God, that's exactly the feeling I was trying to convey. So I'm so happy that that's the reaction you had. That's great.
I mean, I suppose the thing I took away was that the book feels like it's a real invitation to slow down and see Tuscany in a different light, to see Italian cooking or just cooking in general in a different light. I mean, what made you put together this book?
Well, so I grew up in Tuscany and I went to school here till I was 13 and before we moved to England, and then I moved back here 10 years ago. And I suppose from a really young age, our year was dictated by the school term, right? So we were here from September until June, because that's when school was. And then in the summer, we'd be in England visiting family. And so the months I associate with Tuscany are kind of the opposite, I find, to what the rest of the world associates with Tuscany, which is these very hot, languid summer days, the cicadas, just this kind of intense heat. Whereas I was always used to being here when it's cold. And so to me, that's the feeling of home that I get when I'm here is those months. And I think it's a time of year that is so undersold here in a way, because I think it's the most special time, particularly from a culinary point of view. October, November, that's when the woods are groaning with plump porcini mushrooms. It's when white truffles are growing in the valleys. It's when the artichokes are coming back into season, and it's sort of when Tuscan cuisine really comes into its own with ribollita, with those kind of really delicious bean-based recipes, meaty stews, cinghiali in umido, peposo. All these dishes, which are so associated with this region, are not the dishes that we're cooking in July and August. They're the dishes that we're cooking from sort of October until May. And so I think I just really wanted to bring that feeling that I have, as you say, the hug in the book, the home feeling of it just being a really special time of year, and the time of year that it's lovely to hunker down in the kitchen. It's lovely to take on a bit of a project, to feed yourself and your loved ones, to throw something together, even if it's one or two of you, something really nourishing and happy making. And so I just sort of wanted it to be a bit of a manual as to how to not make winter as depressing as it's usually made out to be.
I think that's something that absolutely everyone listening definitely needs, because I think winter's such a funny time, isn't it? You almost, particularly in the UK, it's something to be endured. You get through Christmas, and that's endured, and then you sort of endure it until March, and then everything seems to feel a bit better again after that. But I love the idea of actually embracing it and leaning into it and loving this period of time. I'm really fascinated about your journey, though. So you were born in London.
Yeah, well, I was supposed
to come to move?
Well, so my parents already lived in Tuscany when I was born. They'd been here for about 10 or 15 years, I suppose. and they were living just south of Florence. And I was supposed to be born in Florence, but my birthday falls around this holiday called Ferragosto, which is the 15th of August, or it was supposed to, which is when everyone goes on holiday, including most doctors and hospitals. In the late 80s, this was. And my mum was getting more and more nervous, and it was getting hotter and hotter. And then, in this sort of quite stern patriarchal Catholic way, when she was asking her doctor some questions, he said, "Ma signora, le donne devono soffrire," which means, "But madam, women have to suffer." And so she sort of hot-footed it back to London to have me. But then, amazingly, you didn't need a passport back then, I think, for babies. I mean, I spent months getting passports and stuff for my baby when I had him. But yeah, she just sort of had me, bunged me on a plane with her 10 days later, and we were here again. So I suppose for all intents and purposes, I was here from birth, really. And then we were brought up in this beautiful spot sort of between Siena and Montalcino in a farmhouse. It was semi-derelict when my parents bought it about 6 months after I was born. And I think it had a roof and windows, but no electricity or running water. So quite major, and no garden, no plants or anything. It was just sort of abandoned farmhouse. And they sort of set about restoring it and turning it into our much loved family home. And they brought me and my sister up there. My dad was a landscape gardener. My mum had an antique shop in our local village. And yeah, it was home. It was a lovely kind of mad rural upbringing on a Tuscan hilltop, surrounded by delicious food, luckily.
I mean, what an idyllic upbringing. That sounds incredible. So I'm fascinated because your surname's Guinness. And is that connected in any way to the famous Guinness from Dublin?
Yes, yeah. I mean, there's lots of us. We're a big family, but yes, it is. But my... Well, so if the question is sort of how did my very English parents get washed up on these Tuscan shores, it's basically my father, when he left university, he got a job at something called the British Institute, which is in Florence, and he was sort of lecturing there, and he was like a point of emergency contact for tourists and things. So he was in town working in the British Institute, and my mum was doing an antiquing course, because a lot of furniture restoration, art courses, all the best ones really, those sort of very artisanal skills were and still are in Florence. So my mum was doing an antiquing course, my dad was at the British Institute, and they met and sort of fell in love here and liked it and thought maybe it was a bit nicer than slightly dreary 70s England, I suppose, and just stayed
sensible
here. Yeah, they had a crack at making wine, which people still to this day tell me was revolting, and and then they found their other grooves. But yeah, it's just sort of where they met and decided to raise their family. So there's no sort of, it's quite random, really.
So you grew up in a very bilingual way, speaking English at home and going to school and obviously speaking Italian. You tell some lovely stories about your childhood friend Carolina and her influences on you.
Oh yeah, Cara, she's wonderful. I met her on our first day of primary school, and she's still one of my best friends. And she's just wonderful. She's now a very high-flying sommelier at a very suave hotel called Castillo Leon del Bosco, and she's definitely my sort of go-to reference point for anything wine related, and she's always been so. In my first book, actually, we did a whole kind of section about understanding Tuscan wines, and I touch on that a little bit in Winter in Tuscany, because you have the two kind of main winemaking areas of Tuscany. South of us, there's Montalcino, so Brunello wine, very famous, very delicious, and then just north of us is Chianti, and they grow slightly different grapes and make their wines in slightly different ways. So Carolina's very good at deciphering those differences for me, because as much as I love drinking wine, these are facts I can't retain. I'm so, you have to really have studied it to the level she has to sort of retain the minutiae of details she knows about these delicious varieties.
I love that. I was telling you just before we came on air that my daughter had come in when I was doing some research for this interview today, and I was reading your book, and she said, "Oh, can you read some of it to me, Mummy?" As a 10-year-old girl does, and laid herself down. And I started reading the section about Carolina being a sommelier, and she stopped me and went, "What's a sommelier?" I said, it's an expert in wine, and you have to take all these exams, really difficult to become one. And I had a real moment of thinking the first time she's ever heard of a sommelier will be associated with a female, which traditionally has not happened anywhere near as much.
Very cool.
And I thought, how cool is that? You are living in a different world. Everything. And you could see her little face going, gosh, is that a job? I was like, yes, there are many cool jobs in the world.
That's so true. Such a good point. The trailblazing. Yeah, Carolina, inspiring little girls to become wine experts. I love it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
She'll be thrilled.
So there's so many different areas in the book that I kind of want to dig into. I mean, one of the things that really fascinated me was actually your soup section. And you'd written kind of, what do you call it? Minestre?
Minestre.
Comforting soups.
Comforting exactly.
Soups. And then it's all these beautiful broths. And it just, what's the tradition behind the way that these soups are being created in Tuscany?
Yeah, I'm so pleased you picked up on that, because that chapter was actually the basis for this entire book. That was a chapter that I wrote for my first book and really fought to keep in my first book, A House Party in Tuscany, because again, as I was saying, like winter for me is home. It's the time that really kind of I feel rooted to Tuscany, and these soups are what we would be eating, what my mum would make me, what her Italian friends or the nonne who might be babysitting us would make us if we were a little bit poorly, or they felt we needed looking after, and so they really, to me, are comfort and coziness, and so they kind of embody the whole sentiment behind the book. And I suppose the tradition behind it, from a sort of culinary perspective, is that Tuscany, famously, peasant food, there's absolutely no waste whatsoever. So anytime anyone would make meat, or if they had a kind of cheap cut that's like too chewy to eat or too tough, it would get boiled down and turned into broth. And super nourishing, super delicious. And then that just gets kind of dressed in various different ways. You have, minestra di verdure, veg, which is seasonal veg, or beans, which will get cooked down. And then, I suppose it creates a kind of delicious vegetable broth. You don't even need a kind of meat in there to make it really tasty. Latterly, what most people will have heard of, that turned into ribollita, because they started putting stale bread in it to not waste the stale bread. And yeah, it's just sort of eaten in a variety of ways. So the ways I do it in the book are, there's stracciatella, which is it's traditionally from Lazio, but they make it a lot around us. And it's eggs and parmesan whisked together. And then that's very gently poached in a chicken broth. And it sounds a bit weird, but it is so yummy and nourishing and a bit cheesy and kind of feels indulgent, but is also really good for you and not too kind of heavy. So it's a really, really lovely, delicious dish. And then probably my favorite one, which my mum always used to make for me, and her boyfriend actually calls her seduction soup, because apparently she made it for him, like when he realized he was in love with her. And it's basically, it's malfatti, which means badly made. There's lots of names for these in Tuscany. They're also called nudi, which means naked, and they're naked by dint of the fact that they are little dumplings made from the filling of a raviolo. So like a classic raviolo that you would think of with like ricotta and spinach. It's just not encased in pasta, so it's naked. And you basically just mix ricotta and spinach, bit of parmesan, tiny bit of flour, some nutmeg, salt, pepper. And you make these little tiny balls and you poach those in broth. And God, I can't tell you, on a cold night, ill or not, there is nothing more special. It is absolutely delicious. And so I just sort of really wanted to have a chapter that was all about ways to make broth, not overcomplicating it. And also, if you want to buy broth, that's fine, and then make these recipes. Whatever way you want to do it, you can, but there's just lots of ways to make broth sort of sexy and delicious. So I just sort of really wanted to celebrate that.
No, I love it. And it's also very lots of people are talking about broth, aren't they, with different brands, Barra Broth and Freya, and lots of brands, very popular because of the many nutritional benefits you get from broth. It is supposed to be absolutely fantastic nourishment for your bones and all sorts of things, your collagen levels.
God, I come to England and I look at the supermarket shelves and I think, oh my God, this is so exciting. Because that just doesn't really exist so much, I would say, in the supermarkets yet. Here, you just do have to make it.
It's a different culture, isn't it? It's a culture of people who'd rather make it themselves than have a product. Whereas...
Although they have a very famous brand of stock cube here, which I talk about in the book, called Star, which is the number one sort of selling one, and in the packaging's brilliant. It's sort of like a 50s woman in pearls, holding a bowl of soup, and it's really, really good and really delicious. So people do use that. It's just, I guess, a different culture, but it doesn't have lots of flavorings or taste so MSG as ones I've had in England. So that's a nice thing to have available initially, I would say.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, some of the photos in this book, I mean, they're just absolutely beautifully shot images with sort of steam pouring off these bowls of pasta. And it looks like it's in a home environment. Is that just very, very clever photography, or is it actually been shot somewhere?
That was shot at Argnano, at my family's home in Tuscany. Wow. So when Valentina Solfrini, who's our amazing photographer, she came down. I think we did 2 stints. She came down in December, and we just sort of went about and photographed lots of kind of surroundings and incidental shots. And she very kindly kind of brought to life through the lens the scenes I was describing in the book. And then we with my publisher and with our wonderful food stylist, we all kind of hunkered down for the weekend and shot all the recipes.
Made a lot of food.
Yeah, we made a lot of food. Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely,
it was delicious.
Fantastic. Was there a story I read about? I'm going to say it incorrectly, but the name of your home, is it Arnagno?
So Argnano or Argnano? Depends.
Argnano.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's a sort of kind of creative haven, isn't it?
We basically occasionally, a few weeks a year, we do artist retreats there, and I cook and kind of look after everybody. And my friend Will Ripkazan, who's an amazing painter, sort of helps everyone get to grips with landscape painting. I mean, part of the reason my parents fell in love with that house was because of the view, and it is really extraordinary. It's kind of these 360-degree views. So we're on top of a hill, looking out towards Montalcino, and behind that this sort of beautiful mountain called Monte Amiata. And it's this kind of wonderful uninterrupted view of this UNESCO World Heritage Site, basically. So we're very lucky.
I mean, that must have inspired you to write another book. I know you've already read, and this is your 3rd book, isn't it? Is it A House Party in Tuscany and Italian Coastal?
Exactly, yeah. So it's, the first book was very much inspired by Argnano, by our history there, our time there. I tell the story of how my parents ended up there and starting the artist retreats called the Argnano Painting School. And it's a collection of the recipes that I cook when we have lots of people there, and that my mum cooked, and the recipes she taught us, because I learned to cook from my mum, who trained as a chef. She's now an interior designer, but she's had various career iterations since she was 18. And that was sort of the first, it was the whole picture in one book, I would say. Then Italian Coastal was all about the western Italian coast, so from Tuscany to Sicily, and those regions that touch that sea, because it's some of the most beautiful places in Italy. The most famous ones: Capri, the Amalfi Coast, the Aeolian Islands, and then the Tuscan coast, the Tuscan archipelago. And the food is so varied and so special and delicious, but also is united by this sea and kind of trading routes and stuff. So it was just a kind of interesting exploration of the history. And then for this book, I really kind of wanted to come home, and maybe as a slight rebellion, I don't know, we're on Food Rebels, but because I'd been told we didn't have space for my kind of wintry soup chapter in my first book, I just sort of revisited it and was thinking about it and thinking about the broths and thinking about the soups and what it was that kind of made me so moved and made me so excited by that. And then that was sort of the root of Winter in Tuscany, really, was, okay, well, if it can't be a chapter in that book, I think it should be a book in it of itself, because there's enough to talk about and there's enough food to celebrate.
I love that. I've recently finished reading a book by a lady called Catherine May called Wintering, and it's all about beautiful practices of how people experience, celebrate, enjoy, endure winter in all these different places. And you're giving me like total vibes. I could see you having a chapter in that book. It's that sort of lovely embracing the warmth, going to bed early, eating these nourishing, beautiful foods that are available. There's so much sweetness, isn't there, in a lot of the kind of root vegetables that we have an abundance of in the winter months. Yeah,
I mean, I do often find this surprising about England and the UK in general, is how punishing it's almost made on purpose. Whereas actually it's the time of year when our vegetables and all the things we grow are at their absolute best. Sprouts are absolutely delicious. Why aren't we shredding them and mixing them through lentils, or roasting them and doing all these things, rather than this mad kind of obsession with boiling them to death and then feeling sorry for ourselves? It's kind of I find it very funny. And actually I remember a couple of years ago I had to be in London I live in Florence, but I had to be in London on the, I don't know, I can't remember, the 10th, let's say the 10th of January. And I'd left Florence the night before. I'd had a lovely dinner, early dinner with some friends in a nice restaurant, and I'd be, chatting, and it was a Thursday. And then I went to London and told some old friends I was coming. So we all decided to have, dinner in a pub. And rather than just sort of tell me what they'd been up to, all of them, all anyone did was talk about like, oh, well, this is the first night I've been out since New Year's Eve. And yeah, of course, I'm on day 9 of dry Jan and, and it's just sort of, you think like, guys, it's just a Thursday, it doesn't need to be, you're making it really unpleasant for yourselves.
I think it's a cultural inherited memory, though. I think there's a sort of British post-war stiff upper lip, shut up. Life certainly isn't to be enjoyed. Goodness, no.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas actually, if you kind of revel in slowing down, and rather than kind of take things away, just shift the way you're having them. So as you say, eat nourishing foods. Don't think about like, oh God, I'm going to not eat meat and just live on beans. It's like, oh, how wonderful! I'm going to live on beans. How can I make that as delicious and yummy as I possibly can? Or yeah, I don't know. As you say, it's a total kind of difference in culture, I would say. But I really don't think it needs to be as grim as some people make it out to be. And I think that's what I'd also really love Winter in Tuscany to be. Slightly, it's just a manual for looking after yourself and making yourself cozy and having a nice time with, even if it's a handful of friends. 1 or 2 friends come over and you make them malfatti in brodo, or a delicious stew, or some yummy cheesy pasta, and have a glass of wine or don't have a glass of wine, but you're sitting around chatting with people you love, and it's cold outside but it's warm inside. You can light some candles, you can give that sense of warmth and coziness, and that could be a really special thing too. I mean, some of my favourite meals of all time are like when it's just been me and 2 friends sitting around a table gassing till 1 in the morning.
Oh, 100%. You've got, I mean, it is, you're right, it's a mindset shift, isn't it? There's a phrase you use. What was it? Was it quanto basta?
Yeah, quanto basta.
Tell me
Quanto
about
basta.
that.
It's this wonderful kind of Italian kitchen philosophy, which means as much as you need. And so if you buy a cookbook in Italian, lots of the ingredients like the olive oil, the salt, things. It's a glug of olive oil here, it's a pinch of salt there. It basically means, so next to the ingredients, there will be the 2 letters QB, which means quanto basta, and it means as much as you need. Use as much olive oil as you need. Use as much salt as you need. It's about kind of letting go of this rigidity of getting the teeny tiny measuring spoon out to measure 1/4 teaspoon of salt, or the ruler out to measure how long your rolling out is. And it's I just think it's such a wonderful way of looking at cooking and life sometimes, where it's just sort of, it doesn't need to be perfect. Use your instincts, be practical, be present, taste as you go, and you'll pull something delicious to eat together with what you have. It doesn't need to be a kind of huge stress, and cooking for yourself and friends shouldn't be a huge stress, I always think.
There's a sort of permission slip that comes with quanto basta, isn't there? It's a sort of allow yourself to listen to what you need and take as much or as little as you need. If you like more salt, have a little more. This is fine.
Exactly.
Something that we know of, though, is it? We're used to following that rigidity. It's a very permissive, open. It's lovely.
Yeah, I hope so. Exactly. And really, it just sort of means, I mean, within reason, like baking's a bit different because you need the kind of chemical reactions or whatever.
Yeah,
but within reason, if you oversalt something, add some more of the other ingredients and it won't be so salty. If you taste as you go and kind of use your instincts, you're not going to muck it up too badly. So it is, as you say, a permission to kind of relax a little bit. And there was this wonderful moment I had when I was kind of researching the book where I wanted this amazing kind of legendary local cook to ask called Grazia to teach me to make pici. I just really wanted her recipe because it's the best I know of. And I said to her when we were mixing the dough, I said, "How much flour are you using, do you think?" I mean, vaguely. And she said, "Beh, ci vuole la farina che prende." Which means it'll take as much flour as it takes. I don't know. And, because she does it all by feel, which obviously if you're writing a recipe book is not what you want to hear. But, because I knew that she would probably say something like that, I weighed the bowl of flour before she started taking the flour, and then I weighed it after she'd taken the flour. So I knew how much flour she'd used. But, the point is she's done it so often that she can do it by feel. She knows what the dough should feel like. But I think, people can, you can bring that approach. If you want to use the recipe for my pici in the book, I definitely say, like, if it's a bit more humid in the air, you might need a bit more flour. Like, you've got to slightly pay attention and trust yourself, I think, is the point.
And practice, isn't it?
And practice, exactly.
A joy of practicing. I think there's almost a culture, or certainly this is how I've done it a lot, is I've got people coming over for dinner, quick, get the cookbooks out, let's make something lovely that I don't normally make.
Oh, that's a disaster.
Never make again.
No,
it's a disaster. And actually, if you practice it a few times and your family eat it, and like you say, you change the degrees of flour or salt or whatever, you get to a point where it's perfect, don't you?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I would say for hosting and cooking for other people, I would never ever, and I would definitely advocate never making something that you've not made before, because
I do it all the time.
Really? Does that not stress you out so much?
Totally. I live my life in perpetual stress, Amber.
Oh my God, AJ, because I always think, like, I actually write about this in House Party in Tuscany, is that, part of the reason for cooking for friends is that you also have a nice time and that they get to talk to you. Whereas I don't know, I think if I'm not feeling like I'm making something fail safe, I get such a flap. But I'm amazed. You must be so cool and like chilled you must be a very steady tiller kind of person.
Absolutely not. But I always try and make things in advance so that then it's just a bung it in the oven and it'll be ready.
Okay, so that's a similar. It is actually a similar sort of strategy, I would say.
It's an attempt at that strategy. I mean, invariably, I forget to put the vegetables on, or have a bit too much.
But we like a bit of
the...
quanto basta. We like a bit of imperfection.
Yeah, well, that's true. The perfection's in the imperfection, isn't it?
Exactly.
I wanted to ask you, because I ask everyone that comes on the show, what do you think makes you rebellious? What makes you a food rebel?
I would say, I suppose it is this kind of slightly quanto basta attitude. It's like, I'll take it. If there's a shortcut, I will take it. Pastry, if I can get away with shop bought, if it's puff, I will do that. If I'm in England and I see a very delicious looking bone broth and I'm in a hurry, I don't think I'm too kind of rigid and strict about doing absolutely everything from scratch. I like an easy life. But equally but I won't sacrifice flavour. That's the thing, is, if I think it doesn't taste as good, I won't take the shortcut. But if it's a shortcut that I think doesn't impact the eating experience, because I'm greedy, then I'm 100% going to take that shortcut.
Well, that's very good to hear, because you're also a mother as well as producing beautiful cookbooks and writing and doing all the other things. So it's a juggle, isn't it? There's only so much you can do and be present in so many different places.
Yeah, it's wild. It's kind of crazy. And I think my first book was published in 2022, and then my next two books came out in the next 2 or 3 years. So I've sort of done 3 books in the same amount of time that I've had my son, and it has been quite wild. But also it's really nice to. It's so hard, but it's also so nice to have something that you're really passionate about and want to do. And it's very lovely. My son, he'll often, he points to, I never told him that they were necessarily my books, but he'll just go, Mama's book. And, he knows it's a really nice thing, and definitely makes life more meaningful in ways, and more you just prioritize. You prioritize things more. You realize what you want to prioritize less. It's kind of a good measure for that, I'd say.
I think that's very true. I think the universe is calling everyone to do that at the moment. Lots of
slowing down
and new things beginning and slowing down.
But actually, that is a good point. Yeah, because obviously the book is also all about slowing down. So maybe you're right. Maybe Milo put me in that mood to write this book of slowing down.
Maybe there's a gorgeous picture of you and him. I'm trying to find it. Where he's, I think, standing on a stool or something.
Oh yeah, he's helping. He does help me make peachy. Actually, he really likes that. It's really fun.
Does he?
Peachy are a great one for anyone with young kids. They are a really good, fun pasta to make with kids because it's just flour and water. It's like Play-Doh essentially, and then you can and it doesn't matter if they're a bit thick and imperfect. And
or
then
they eat it.
Or they eat it. It won't kill them. That's always good. And then you cook it, dress it in some. If he loves it with olive oil and parmesan, pasta in bianco, it's called here, which is what lots of kids have. Or I'll make a tomato sauce or whatever, and it's just quite fun to kind of make dinner together and then eat it together.
Oh, that's brilliant. And my final question: do you have a favourite recipe in this book?
Oh, so hard. It's so difficult, isn't it? Because it sort of depends on my mood and how much time I have. But
today then.
Today, right this minute. Okay, so there's a really gorgeous recipe in the book called rigatoni al sugo finto, and finto in Italian means fake, basically, and it's fake by dint of the fact that it actually contains no meat, but it mimics mincemeat, and it's sort of what people were making when they couldn't afford meat to put in their ragu, so they made a sugo finto, and it's just carrot, celery, onion diced down really into tiny pieces, ideally by hand, and then cooked down with red wine, and the red wine sort of tints it and makes it look a bit more like meat, and you cook it down for quite a long time, like 45 minutes, and then stir quite a bit of parmesan through it, and it is just this gorgeous, delicious, light pasta that really gives you this kind of feeling that you've had something really indulgent but leaves you feeling quite good. It's a really special recipe, and every time I've made it for people, and halfway through I'll say, yeah, it's yummy, isn't it? It's good, and it's vegetarian, so it's quite a handy one to have up your sleeve. And they go, there's no meat in this, and I say no, and they go, and they're really amazed. But it's very joy, delicious apart from anything.
There's such a joy of making really, really delicious vegetarian or maybe even vegan meals, and realizing just beautiful ingredients like that coming together can make something so gorgeous. Exactly.
And actually, I mean, I think this so much about Tuscan food, so much Tuscan food just happens to be vegetarian or vegan. And it's not trying to, I mean, in this case, it is trying to pretend to be ragu, but most of the time it's not trying to replicate, it's not like a burger that's made of beetroot or whatever. It's just it's just really showcasing the vegetables and making something really delicious with what's to hand and inexpensive, which is really special, I think.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's really incredible. Well, all I can say is people should go and buy your book. Where can they buy your book from?
Oh, thank you, AJ. It's available Waterstones, all, good independent bookshops, Amazon, the usual spots. That's where you can get it. Bookshop.org.
Beautiful burnt orange cover. So gorgeous.
I'm so pleased you liked it. That's high praise.
I love it. I really do. Winter in Tuscany by Amber Guinness. Cozy recipes and the quanto basta way. Brilliant. Thank you so much for taking time out to come on the show, Amber. It's been great meeting you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been so lovely.
Thanks so much for listening to Food Rebels. So you don't miss out on more brilliant brand recommendations, insider tips and inspiring interviews, please make sure you're subscribed to Food Rebels and drop a comment below. These simple actions, like subscribing or commenting, take just a few seconds, but they mean the world to us. And it doesn't just help Food Rebels, it really helps to support the food brands and personalities we have on the show, who are all trying to raise awareness. And if you know any brilliant brands, or food founders, or chefs or campaigners who have a really great story to tell, then do let us know. You can get in touch with us either via our website, or you can reach out on social media. Our handle is @food_rebels_, and we love hearing from you. Thanks so much for listening.